And then some of the headlines this morning. We've got Portia Berry-Kilby with us, political commentator and contributor to Young Voices UK. Portia, good morning.
Good morning, Callum. How are you?
Yes, I'm all right, thank you. Now, I realise I've just, been inspired by Marcus to do glimmers of good news. Let's talk about Sarah Gilbert's next pandemic could be more lethal than COVID warning, which is bright and cheery, isn't it, to start the day? I do wonder, how do you feel? Obviously, she knows what she's talking about. She is one of the creators of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. This is her thing, and that is a serious warning. Do you think that by any stretch of the imagination, we are in any way prepared for that?
I don't. If the past year and a half is anything to go by, then definitely not prepared for that. Should we be prepared for that? Well, if it's going to be lethal, yes. If it were another COVID, there's clearly the infrastructure to develop vaccines and administer them at pace. Hopefully there would be as much enthusiasm should there be something more serious than COVID. But it also seems a bit of scaremongering, to be quite honest, and very much Grinch-esque. There's always a chance that we get hit by something from the sky, but we don't live in fear of that happening.
I get what you mean. I feel like, I wonder if labelling it scaremongering is unhelpful, actually, because scaremongering suggests there's absolutely no depth or gravitas to it. But by her very nature, Dame Sarah Gilbert is an expert in this. She was delivering the 44th Richard Dimbleby lecture. She says, "This will not be the last time a virus threatens our lives and livelihoods. The truth is the next one could be worse. It could be more contagious, more lethal, or both." And I accept that it is scary, but scaremongering suggests that actually it's unnecessary. Is it not necessary for us to face the reality that actually it could be worse in future?
I think it's necessary for the people in whichever department has to make those plans and provisions for something fairly lethal hitting us. But at the same time, she said in her lecture that we should vaccinate everyone against the flu. Is that necessarily the best advice? It's a recommendation. That doesn't necessarily mean it would be a good policy or a good use of money or time to vaccinate healthy 20-year-olds against the flu.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, then on COVID, Boris Johnson under more pressure over Number 10 Christmas party claims. So there's a few bits around on this, and it's also, I think it's always interesting just to observe that this is a story that hasn't gone away. Do you know, sometimes these things kind of come and go, but actually this has been running for days now. Questions around parties last year at Number 10. Dominic Raab, Deputy Prime Minister, saying if there had been a COVID sort of party in Number 10 during lockdown around this time last year, then it would have been the wrong thing to do. That's what Dominic Raab said. Do we feel like we've got all the answers we need on this at this point? It still feels a little bit mysterious, doesn't it?
It's very much mysterious insofar as Boris has been, I can neither confirm nor deny, so to speak, with this party, which basically means it happened. And rightfully people are angry. These politicians were making rules over Christmas which disrupted nearly everyone's plans across the country and not abiding by, definitely not the spirit of the rules themselves. Maybe it was the latter. If they were all working in Number 10 and then just opened a few cans, then, technically what is a party? But yeah, rightfully it is showing it's not gone away and people are angry. It's been a constant time of one set of rules for most people, but then those making the rules seem to be beyond them.
And that is the issue here, isn't it? That the perception, it sort of gives us flashbacks to Dominic Cummings and his eye test trip to Barnard Castle, etc., doesn't it? Where those who are kind of inflicting rules and restrictions on the rest of us, whether we go along with those or not, it does feel like there's a kind of set aside group of people who can get away with things.
Exactly, and some who can't. So we had Kay Burley, who was in a similar breach of COVID rules around similar time or under Tier 3 restrictions, and she was suspended, and that she was held to a higher standard than the politicians are, and yet the politicians are less likely to relax the rules if they don't have the harsh reality of having to live by them every day. So I think that also kind of fuels the frustration and even anger amongst most normal working people.
It is worth saying, of course, that Downing Street says that no rules were broken, but there is growing pressure for Boris Johnson to really just come clean and to clarify exactly what was going on. I think it was December the 18th is the date in question, which is when London was under Tier 3 restrictions. But yes, insisting that no rules were broken. And then with all of that in mind, I suppose, Portia, the front page of the Daily Mirror this morning, New Year virus warning, beware, cost of Christmas, expert urges caution, celebrations could force new curbs. And I suppose that, we've got Omicron bubbling away. We're waiting for the official information on, exactly what that means for us. But it's kind of familiar territory for us to some extent to sort of realise and to understand that something like Christmas and holidays, when people gather indoors, people are drinking, people are hugging, people are moving around the country, etc., that actually that could push something of a surge into the new year, and that'll make New Year quite unpleasant potentially. So is this another just reality check for us that the start of 2022 actually might be quite tough?
Well, I'd actually disagree with you, Callum. I think that there really isn't that much to be concerned about just yet. We have over 50 million first doses. We have 20 million boosters administered of the vaccine. So I think these have all been taken up. Some people genuinely scared, others on the assumption that they can live a normal life afterwards, especially young, fairly healthy people. It's kind of putting the hold on Christmas to save the New Year, putting New Year on hold to save Easter. It's always going to be going on and on. And if there's no increase in hospitalizations or no increase in deaths, then I think people should be able to take the chance and the risk themselves for maybe a tough time in bed for a few days, but nothing worse.
Yeah. I suppose it's one of those things, isn't it? I don't know about you, but it's the uncertainty. We don't know enough about what this next few weeks looks like. And Matt Dathan from The Times suggesting that we'll probably get a clearer idea on Christmas later this week. And of course, the scientists are working hard to work out exactly what Omicron means for us. But it is just this feeling of unsettled uncertainty.
Unsettled uncertainty, the rules can change whenever. But so far, the World Health Organization reported no deaths from Omicron. It seems potentially that the boosters are fine against it. So really, I think people are getting a little too ahead of themselves in cancelling plans, cancelling parties, and it's been a whole 18 months of need to learn to live with the virus. This is an opportunity to prove that we are able to do that.
Portia, really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks,
we will
Callum.
catch you again soon. Thank you. That's Portia Berry-Kilby, political commentator and contributor to Young Voices UK.